Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Health Made Simple Show. I'm your host, Dr. Bart, and today with us we have might be my favorite guest of the entire year, and absolutely most favorite veterinarian on the earth, and that is Dr. Maddie Hanish. So, Dr. Maddie, I'm biased for many reasons to have you here, yet nonetheless, welcome. Nice to have you on the Health Made Simple Show.
Thank you, Dr. Bart. It is my absolute pleasure to be here today. I've been watching the Health Made Simple show for years, and so to be a guest on here is pretty full circle for me. I'm feeling the love today.
So I'm going to fill in some of the blanks for our folks listening to help everyone understand how you were here and why you were here. So not only do I use you now as my vet, we can talk about that today. I just had 3 of my dogs do their wellness labs yesterday. Was that yesterday? I think it was yesterday. Yet we met several years ago, and you were talking my language. You were speaking the language of the same language I have in, say, functional medicine and health and whatnot in the doggy world, which was very interesting. So today I would love for you to, and then it goes farther. So I'm going to jump forward, real fast forward for everyone listening. We have behind Dr. Maddie, you can see a sign. Maybe you can see the sign, or maybe just listen here, and it says the Dog Kula. And for those who've been following us on social media, my wife and I, Kelly, recently just opened up this place called the Dog Kula, which we now are super excited. We have a holistic vet, which is Dr. Maddie there. So super excited about all of that. And this has been for us, I got to tell you, this is probably almost a 10-year dream where, we've had dogs in our lives for so many years, and so often looking for someone to be able to assist us in helping our dogs live these healthier, more vibrant lives. So again, thank you for being here. I'd love to hear from you a little bit about your background. Let's share with the audience a little bit about you, maybe your journey to get here, because this is what I do know. Especially, I get an opportunity to travel around the country and teach doctors about functional medicine, not necessarily veterinarians, but doctors, other people working on humans, and I'm always fascinated, and I also have this part of me that has a super high level of respect for anyone who is willing to train at something for as many years and as many hours, countless nights that you put into training a particular, say, mode of action or a profession, whatever, and then still keep your mind open to that there might also be additional ways to do some other things. So best you can. I would love to hear a little bit of that journey, a little bit about your journey and how you ended up with us here.
Awesome. I'm happy to share it. I'm going to get a little uncomfy, a little vulnerable, but that's okay. I think it's an important thing to talk about, important thing to share. In the most simplest terms, it just made sense. It made sense to me to go this way versus more of the traditional route. I found myself questioning everything I was learning right off the bat. But when it really, really hit home for me was when I went through it myself. I was in a personal crisis. I failed out of veterinary school. I don't even know if you know that, Dr. Bart. Failed out of veterinary school my second semester and went to the guidance counselor. I was just not feeling myself. I was emotional to the point of hysterically sobbing for no reason, or emotional to the point of yelling at the poor woman in the grocery store that's just doing their job. And that was not me. That was not authentic to me. I just knew that something wasn't right for me to be acting, for me to be feeling so out of character. And so I went to the school guidance counselor, who told me that I was emotionally unfit and incompetent to be a veterinarian, and that my best option was to just let vet school go and move on to something else and seek mental health along the way. And that just hits me so hard now to think back at that. And that poor little girl who was so in such a bad place, and then was just led so astray by the experts. And then I found you. My parents had been through some work with you, Dr. Bart, and they sent me your way. They set me up with an online consultation, and immediately you said, it's your adrenal glands. Like, it was no big deal. Like, it was this answer that everybody should know. And you explained to me that you've been under massive amounts of stress. Your body has been under stress for years. Between high school, we have this mindset of, I need to get to veterinary school. And everything we do for our entire lives becomes surrounded with, how do I get there? and we forget to take care of ourselves along the way. And so it's a lot of stress in undergrad, and then stress to get into vet school. And then vet school is its own other level of stress. And our adrenal glands just don't have time to recover. There's no discussion about it, there's no focus about it. Our hormones just go crazy because they don't know what else to do, and they're exhausted because they've been functioning in overdrive for so long. And you got me on the right tonics, the right supplements. You changed my diet, you changed my lifestyle, and I appealed veterinary school. I appealed that decision with the dean of the school, and he said, "Yeah, I think you're a good kid. I think you've got a good head on your shoulders. I think you're highly intelligent. You just had a rough semester." And he let me come back, and I sailed through the rest of veterinary school. I was extremely successful in what I did, and all of that has led me to where we are today. I figured if there's so much that functional medicine could do for my health and that holistic medicine could do for my health, why am I treating my patients any differently? And then that just became very organic in how I started practicing medicine as I graduated. I just leaned into to all of that, to the more holistic side. I went to the Chi Institute. I got certified in veterinary acupuncture, and have taken courses there in food therapy as well. And then I became a vet, and I started practicing medicine from a Western perspective because that's how we're taught. And in our first year, we're going through mentorship. Um, and so we're being taught, still guided in kind of that Western medicine way. And things just started to feel really inauthentic. I started my job really loving it, really enjoying it. And as the time went on, my patients are sick and I'm not making them better. My only answer is to put them on a lifelong medication that I would never do for myself necessarily. And so then it became this internal turmoil of how do I balance these two? How do I make the integration between the Western medicine and the holistic medicine? Because there's a huge place for both. It's not one way or the highway. There's massive needs on both ends. And so then it's been a journey over the past few years of figuring out how do I put these two together, so that I can do the best for my patients. So in a long story, it started with my own health. It bled into my pet's health, and then it bled into my patient's health, and here we are today.
I did not know that you failed out of veterinarian school. And that's interesting. I think, I think almost all success stories start with some failure on some level, right? Like that we have to go through some hard shit in order to eventually like rise up. And sometimes if you don't have it hard, sometimes it doesn't really force you to dig in deep. Thanks for sharing that. I had no idea. And there's so many things there that I think you said the doctor, I don't know, you used the words out of character. That conversation right there, I think can be applied to our pets so often. And yet because remember our pets, you know this, our dogs and our cats, they don't get to speak. They don't have a voice in the game. Yet often we see out of character responses. We see behavior changes and whatnot. So thanks for sharing it. That journey right there. And I'll say to everyone that's listening, you gave me some kudos there. I appreciate that. And it's really not up to me. It's always up to the patient and the opportunities that you either take or don't take. That is always the situation that takes, because the truth is there's a lot of good men and women like myself who know, yeah, oh yeah, this is just an adrenal case. Meaning that, our bodies are designed to help and to heal. And if we give them an opportunity, they can do amazing things. Yet as individuals, we have to take action. And that's what I find so unique about being in the veterinarian world for you, is that our patients can't speak, and that our patients, even though they're the animals, and I say your patients are the animals, it is the parents who have to take the actions. So I know how hard my job is, quite frankly, to get the people to take care of themselves. But when the patient can't even speak, I got to imagine that that's tough. So share with me a little bit about that conversation. I would love to just hear some insights, some like back office insight on how is it communicating with the doggy mama, the doggy daddy, who might not have any idea what's going on with the dog. How do you bridge it? How do you even open a lot of those conversations?
Yeah, so there's two parts to this. The first one being the conversation with the owners, And with that, it's always funny because there's all of these shirts and things that say veterinary medicine because I hate people. But it's such a joke because most of our job is working with people and trying to meet them. I think the biggest thing that I do to reach my clients would be to meet them where at the level that they're at. So they come in and they bring their pet in, and they're concerned about X, Y, and Z. Now, oftentimes, what they're concerned about isn't actually the biggest problem that pet has going on, and so it's making sure to approach it and to speak to them about their concerns, and then to be able to integrate kind of what the main purpose of the exam is, and then to have a conversation about, okay, where do we go from here, and what's realistic to you. And sometimes that means asking them what's feasible. How often are they home during the day? How often can we be doing supplements? What's our feeding look like? All of those kinds of things. And so just like I said, meeting them where they're at, so that we're not coming in and giving all of this information, all of this knowledge that they're going to go home and forget. And just figuring out what works with them in their lifestyle, because just because it might be the quote unquote best thing for that patient, if it doesn't fit into the owner's lifestyle, it's not going to happen. So understanding them and what drives them is a huge component of it. And then there's the second component of this, which is, in my opinion, a really beautiful part that we forget and don't realize, is that our animal patients don't put stigmas on themselves. They don't give themselves labels. When you give them a diagnosis, they don't understand what that means. They're just living life. They're just trying to be happy, get to the next day. And so they don't hinder themselves in the same way that people do. So we have a really beautiful opportunity to treat them and to provide them with everything that their body needs without having that mental blockage that a lot of humans get when they're going through treatments and things.
Yeah, I love hearing you say that the dogs don't know about the labels. They don't carry them around. I remember years ago, one of my dogs, Daryl, who I've spoken a fair amount of on the podcast, was paralyzed, and my wife and I would always talk about how, remind each other that Daryl does not know he can't use his back limbs. His two front limbs work great, and he's got a smile from ear to ear, and he's doing the best damn he can. Like, he's not depressed. Like, he's not bummed out that the other two don't work. He knows the front two work, and he just keeps cruising around. So let's back up just a little bit. Let's back up for the audience. And so now, because I don't want to make any assumptions, that people understand that you've kind of made almost a philosophical, not a switch, but an enhancement maybe in the way that you practice. I'll let you articulate that how you'd like to. So I would call what you do kind of a holistic veterinary. If in whatever words you want to use, can you share with the audience what does it mean to be a holistic vet? What would that look like? What kind of things do you do differently, or what's your approach that's different?
Yeah, so fundamentally, the entire approach to how I practice medicine is very different from how I was taught in school. When we're taught in school, very similar to human medicine, we're taught how to treat symptoms, how to treat disease, how to treat the bad things that happen to our body. And when we look at medicine from a holistic approach, we're looking at root causes. We're looking at systems, organs, glands, how they communicate, how they work together, so that we can not only prevent a lot of these issues from coming up, but to get to the root cause and not put a Band-Aid. Oftentimes when we're treating symptoms, we're putting a Band-Aid on a bigger issue. My husband, who is not veterinary trained, I was trying to explain this concept to him, and the best way I was able to do it was, if your light bulb is out in your car, it could be that the light bulb is bad or burnt out. It could be that there's an electrical issue, or it could be a combination of both. And if we just keep changing that light bulb while the electrical issues continue to wreak havoc on the car, we're going to have a much bigger issue than if we're just replacing that bulb. We got to get to those root causes in order to know where we go from here and how to best approach medicine with our patients.
So I know firsthand that by taking that approach, looking at systems, organs, and glands, I know that's not the easy path. I know that firsthand. I know that is often mean that you're going to swim upstream or against kind of the I don't know, the rhythm that's out there when it comes to healthcare, especially in the veterinarian world, where you're absolutely right. It is a race to see how fast you can get rid of these symptoms. And that would be considered a good doctor. And it's not even that they're bad men and women. They're doing exactly how they've been trained. So you kind of chosen the hard path. FYI, if you haven't figured that one out, you have. I know it's fulfilling. And um, so you mentioned a little bit earlier your personal health story on with your patients now. So does it mean that you don't practice any of that, let's say classical veterinary medicine? Is there a blend, and how does that look now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I absolutely integrate both what I've learned in my Western medicine teachings as well as my Eastern medicine teachings. I find that there's a massive place for full Western medicine when we're talking about acute issues. So if somebody comes in with a trauma, a hit by car,
Mhm.
um, and situations like that where they need acute life saving medicine. That's probably my favorite part
Mhm.
of Western medicine is we're able to save patients that previously would not have been able to survive with the advancements and medications and things that we have. And so understanding, I guess, when is a patient good for Western medicine versus Eastern medicine has been the biggest learning curve for me. And this is kind of where I have it boiled down to
Mhm.
is if it's acute, life saving, stabilization type situations, Western medicine is a great option.
Mhm.
If it's something chronic or preventative, a holistic approach is going to be the better option and
Mhm.
way to go. That's how I treat my patients.
I love it, and I think that's for years I've been always saying that because people will think that, oh, Doc, you don't like this or you don't like that. No, I think there's a place for so many things that there's really an and world in all of it. So, next question, you don't have to answer this. You got to be curious how you do answer it. What are some of the things that come right away to your brain, right away to your mind when I say, what are some of the things you see in the profession that you don't necessarily like? And again, you don't have to answer that, only if you want to.
Ooh. Things that make me uncomfortable and feel inauthentic when I practice are the frequency and amount of vaccines, first and foremost, are highly processed, actually ultra processed kibble diets that we push with our patients. Steroids as band-aids for anything that we don't have an answer on how to fix it, and overuse of antibiotics in patients that truly don't need them. And I would say my fifth thing, if I can add a fifth, would be the way that we treat allergies. We medicate allergies when allergies are an internal issue. We know that from the human world, we know that from the animal world, but yet we continue to try to treat it externally. So those would be my main things that really make me squeamish and uncomfortable and inauthentic when I'm practicing medicine.
Fascinating enough, Doc, that those are the exact same things in our everyday healthcare system that we have issues. We have an issue with um, love it, hate it, call it whatever it is, but over vaccination. When I was young, we would have 12, 13 vaccines. Now I think the schedule is like 40 plus for humans. The answer in every walk-in clinic in this country, there's two primary weapons that they use over 85%. If you walk in a walk-in clinic, it's either going to be a steroid or it's going to be an antibiotic, which kind of so it's over 85% of exact. So you already know what you're getting, no matter what illness you have. And then allergies, you hit that on the head because it's always just suppress the symptoms, suppress the symptoms. So let's shift gears a little bit. And thank you for answering that. Hopefully we don't get ourselves in trouble there. Let's talk a little bit. So I was in there yesterday. I think that was yesterday. My days just rolled together. Saturday. Today's Sunday, correct? Yeah. So we're recording this on Sunday. I was in there yesterday with three of my dogs, and we ran some wellness labs. And for what it's worth, everyone out there who has a bulldog, bulldogs are probably the hardest, most pain in the ass patients in the world. Yet, nonetheless, I have a big bulldog. His name is Jarvis, and Jarvis, he's an adopted dude, and he's awesome. And he's probably half the size of you. He's a big guy. You're not necessarily huge, so this was interesting to watch you work with him with such grace. Was awesome. Talk to us a little bit about like some of the things that you would foresee wellness labs. What kind of things would you recommend if someone's thinking about that? Why would I go see like a holistic vet? What are some of the things that you would make a suggestion for?
Yeah, that's wonderful. So wellness labs are really preventative labs, in my opinion, early detection labs. So we actually know now, it's really interesting. It used to be that they would say that one dog year is 7 human years. But we know that that's very inaccurate now, and that dogs do most of their aging in their first 3 to 4 years of life. And
Mm.
then their aging slows down after that. So at 3 to 4 years old, we're already hit the 50-year-old human kind of age. And so people will say, I'll hear them all the time, we don't need to do lab work. My dog's only 2. But 2 is actually pushing middle age in our dogs as far as how they progress in their health. And so to be getting yearly lab work so that we can be on top of all of our organ systems and glands and see how they're functioning is really important. The earlier we can detect issues, the sooner that we can support the body so that it can do its own healing along that pathway. We can prevent a lot of these things, our endocrine diseases, our hypothyroidism, our Cushing's disease, all of those labels that we put on patients. We can prevent so many of those with just early detection.
One that hits home for me, and for many of you that know me personally. I've had many dogs, and this past year we lost one of my little favorite ones. Her name was Paris, and she died of kidney disease. And you met Paris, and she was just a special one of those really special little animals that you get the blessing to have in your life. And by the time we did the first labs. And I didn't know this. I didn't know. We did labs. I thought I was doing the right thing. And I thought I was relatively early. We were told that she has kidney disease. And you shared with me the other day that, and maybe you can articulate this a little better, but by the time it shows up on your general labs, that you're pretty far down the road. Is that correct? So now we run another additional lab that we ran on all my dogs yesterday.
Yes. So when we're just specifically looking at BUN and creatinine, which are 2 of our kidney lab results, when those 2 elevate together, it tells us we have kidney issues, but they don't elevate until we have 75% nephron loss in those kidneys. So our nephrons are what help those kidneys to function. They help to absorb our nutrients and figure out what's getting filtered out. And so it's 75% destruction of those nephrons before it'll ever show up on our typical lab results. But now we have a really beautiful lab that's called an SDMA that can tell us when we're all the way at 25%. So not that it's an insignificant amount of loss, but we're detecting it significantly earlier than we would have been able to before.
Which is literally awesome, because that's I practice functional medicine. I have the same conversations with my patients all the time. Let's run some labs. Let's see where we're at. And we run very elaborate, very detailed labs. And I actually continue to add to that lab list, because if we can see the writing on the wall, if we have those opportunities to see things in the early phases, we can do something about them. So for my dogs now, and for many people listening to this podcast, I think a lot of us agree. We kind of think they are. They're our dogs and our cats and our pets. They're part of our family, and so it's a no-brainer for me now to have that security, quite frankly, because that one came up behind me and hit me in the back of the head. I thought I was doing all the right things. Paris was rescued. I didn't know her past. I didn't know her history. She was a super healthy. Well, no, I take that back. There was some history there. When I first got her, she was very, very thin, wasn't eating, wasn't drinking. And we got her on a good diet, got her healthy again. But I didn't know the damage that was done. She was kind of a breeding dog and whatnot. So now I have an opportunity to run those labs and, sleep with a little more confidence going on. I know where my dogs are at. It's not always perfect, but nonetheless, it's a great option to have. So, all right. So a couple more things and I'll let you run this evening. So, talk to me a couple about your specialties when it comes to, say, being a holistic vet. We all kind of have our niche of what we're good at and the things we like to offer our patients. Share with the audience some of the things that you love to do and some of the things that you're going to be offering at the Dog Kula.
Yeah. First and foremost, acupuncture. That's where I really started getting into the holistic veterinary world. And it's just the change in my patients that I've seen have been truly unbelievable. I worked in a primarily Western medicine clinic before, but they did allow me to bring in acupuncture. When I brought it in, I had no idea how the community would respond. this is part of why I love people as well, because they really embraced it and they really gave me that opportunity to show them what I could do. Not what I can do, what their pets can do with my help. Um, and what acupuncture can do for them. There's a patient that specifically sticks in my mind. His name was Rex, and he was a Newfoundland that was going down in his back end. Actually, Annie as well. She's a Great Dane. Very similar stories with these two, but they both had hind limb paralysis. They weren't able to get up in their back end, and if you know Newfoundlands or Great Danes, they're not a small breed. You can't just pick them up, carry them around, put them in a wheelchair. It just doesn't work. They're too heavy. And so if they go down, that's kind of it. We're out of options. And so some of the other doctors asked me to consult on these two specific cases. And I started doing acupuncture with both of them. Within a week, they were both up and walking and moving around. And we brought 6+ months of life and longevity, good quality of life to both of those patients, who both ended up passing away for issues unrelated to their hind limb paralysis. And so that's when I was sold. I would say actually the thing that really did it for me was because I believed I wouldn't have gone through all of this training if I didn't believe that it was worthwhile. But my technicians, who had only ever been Western trained, they hadn't seen anything like this before. I had a patient named Duke who the orthopedic specialist and neurologist both told them that their dog would never walk again from severe disc disease. And he came in unable to move his back legs. He needed surgery. The owners couldn't afford surgery and came to me as kind of a last effort. And he came in for his first treatment, and the owner drove 3 hours, I believe it was, to come and bring her dog to us for acupuncture. And the first time he came back, so his second treatment, he stumbled his way in. It wasn't perfect, but he was on his feet. And the third time he came in, so for his third treatment, he came in running, and my technicians just cried. They had never seen anything like it. To them, it was so unbelievable that it was a really special moment, and for me to be able to see, okay, so this is the real deal. This is really important, and it works. Yeah.
Interesting. I remember the first time I ever brought one of my dogs to a holistic doc was I had this big bulldog. His name was Norman. He was like one of my first, like, really, I don't know, I want to say like one of my first loves when it comes to dogs. It's kind of fascinating, but he was, everyone has one of those dogs. It's like they're by your side. They're that one of the pack. And we've always had a lot of dogs. And Norman was that one anyways, a big bulldog, about 80-pounder. And one day I came home and he was just stuck in the yard and he wouldn't get up and move. He had, I didn't know what was wrong, but apparently he had essentially like tore or damaged both of his ACLs just running around chasing dogs. Went to a traditional route, and in the appointment with the traditional vet, they lightly put him down a little bit, like they gave him like some type of like anesthesia, and it almost stopped his heart. So that was not an option for me to have him go fully under. They did that just for the evaluation. And it's not that uncommon. It's a little riskier for bulldogs, apparently, with anesthesia. So we got him out, and I couldn't go that route. He's only 3 years old at the time. So someone gave me a number, this holistic vet. I traveled 2.5 hours to go see her. And when I get there, she has a bunch of supplements on the wall, and she has acupuncture and laser therapy. And so it's because it's so far away, she actually taught me how to use the laser and kind of gave it to me / rented it to me, and I eventually ended up purchasing it from her. Anyway, so I started using laser therapy and every now and then going to her for some acupuncture and doing these things. And at 3 years he lived to 10 and a half years old, no surgeries, where we were going to have double knee surgery at the same time. It was this bizarre scenario. And that opened up my eyes to, man, so many of these things that you say they can't heal, they do. And we just got to give them the chance. It reminds me every single day, one of the first things I learned in chiropractic school is that the power that made the body heals the body. And if we get out of the way and remove the interference. The power that made the body heals the body. It doesn't happen any other way. And technically it comes from above down, inside out. So if we let that power that made the body heal the body, man, a lot of really good things happen. And it takes some patience, and it takes sometimes doing it wrong a little bit. And often it takes a little bit of fear. And that seems like a weird motivator, but it does. I was very fearful of what if I couldn't take care of my dog, Norman? And I was fearful of what if I couldn't provide him with what it took to have this amazing life and to watch him over the next 7 or 8 years, just kind of like be a normal dog without these massive surgeries. So, and I understand so you're going to do some lasers as well, some acupuncture, some laser therapy.
Yes, ozone therapy. Like we said, lots of functional lab testing, microbiome testing, of course, our physical exams and wellness. We will have more holistic options as far as how we approach vaccinations, all kinds of good stuff.
That's awesome. Each one of those, whether we talked about ozone, we could probably make an entire podcast on that. We've seen some, what I would call almost like miracles take place there. Laser therapy, I could talk about that all the time, and that's anyone like knee issues, hip issues, arthritis, sprained joints, all of that kind of stuff. Healing from surgeries. I'm sure you guys using that in the clinic a fair amount. We used it on my dog, Daryl, for 8 years straight. Every Saturday, my wife and I, every Saturday that we were in town, we would go to our vet and got rest in peace, Dr. Bart, and we'd use his class 4 laser, and we literally regenerated his nerves, which we thought, years ago, that was a no-no. They say, well, you couldn't, once you're paralyzed, you damage the spinal cord, you could not recover and repair. We know otherwise now. We know that with the proper tools, the nutrition, the environment, all the above, that these little critters are healing machines. So we saw Daryl go from almost zero use of his back end to probably spent the next 8 years with about 80% of function in his back legs, which is pretty cool. Ozone therapy, we just kind of mentioned there. All right. So let's kind of pull this all together. We could just chat about all that all night long. So if someone was going to come see you as a patient, or I guess their dog or a cat, you see more than dogs, I assume.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And why don't you, for our listeners, do you have any animals, Dr. Maddie?
That's a lovely question. I have a zoo. So I have 10 cats, probably 6 cats if you add up their limbs, actually. We have missing limbs, missing eyes, all the things. So quite the little misfit clan there. I have 3 dogs, a rabbit, and an albino ball python. So quite the crew. It's only going to be growing. My husband and I purchased a little hobby farm, so we're going to be doing the chickens and the goats and all of that as well. So that family will be growing soon.
I love it. And of course, I think most of my listeners know that we still have our 8 dogs. Surprisingly enough, we do have 6 cats now that there are barn cats, and I fell in love with those little critters. I don't know how it just happened overnight, and they're awesome. Love them. We got all the chickens, so certainly. I keep saying we're not going to add, but I've stopped saying that. I have no idea. I never know what happens. No one knows what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to show up on my doorstep. All right. So if someone wanted to come see you, what does it look like? Is there any way they can prepare? Are there things that they need to do before they would come in, or could they just, make an appointment and show up?
Yeah. So I'm going to have a pretty thorough questionnaire, I would say, that we'll send to you ahead of time before the appointment. So it's just things to kind of start get you thinking about our diet, our lifestyle, the patient's preferences, whether they prefer laying on a cozy couch or a tile floor. So it'll be just all of these different things that provide me a lot of information, but are things that maybe you haven't thought about or considered or paid attention to before. So that'll get sent out ahead of time so you can be well prepared. And then I can take a look at it ahead of time as well so that I can be well prepared for this appointment. And then during the appointment, it'll start out as just a conversation. I want to give the patients time to kind of relax, get comfortable in the space, feel like we're not just going to jump on them as soon as they walk in the door. I want it to be a very relaxing experience for them. I want them to enjoy coming to see me and not be afraid. And we'll do a physical exam after we've kind of had all of that that communication part taken care of for the most part. And then we'll talk about where we go from here, whatever the recommendations are, um, and and make a good plan together. Like I said before, that not only is best for your animal, but is also fitting to your lifestyle and your needs as well. Um, and and then we'll watch the magic happen.
I love it. So, in the event that if someone had labs from prior visits or different doctors and stuff like that, is that stuff that you'd like to see? Do they need that, or
Great question. Absolutely. The more information I can have, the better. The bigger the picture I'm able to build with what's going on with your pet and what's their story. If I can have their story up until the point that I see them, that helps me significantly to understand them, to understand you, and to make better recommendations. We can also do a lot of comparisons that way. So with lab work, a huge part of doing lab work is going to be following trends, not necessarily what happened on that lab work that day, but how is it changing as we age and progress. So the more information I can get from your previous veterinarians, the better.
that's a great point, especially when it comes to labs. So often we hinge right on that lab. We think, oh, I see a red mark, and this must be a really bad thing. And especially humans are no different. That we use the labs to start to tell us a story, and we put all that together. It's almost like one piece of the puzzle. But the history, the conversation that you have with the patient. So it's no different for your patients or my patients. That when we put it all together, and I always remind the patients that they're not their labs; they are humans. And now they are dogs that have labs. And the more data we can see over the history, it just provides such a better, longer, deeper story. And then if they were for a wellness visit, do you typically have your patients, do you ever have them collect like urine or stool, those important things, or does that kind of be determined later? At what point would you have that conversation?
Yeah, I will never say no to urine and stool. The worst that's going to happen is you bring it in and we throw it out because we don't need it. But I would rather have it than not have it. So always, anytime you're coming in for an appointment, bring me urine and bring me stool. If you're able to, like I said, the more information, the better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bring your poop with you. Awesome. I love it.
Come
All
on,
right.
we need
All right.
choices.
All right. So if people want to reach out to you directly, or if they want to schedule an appointment, is there a contact? Is there a way that they can? What's the best way for them to do that?
Yes, the best way right now, as we're in this transition period, would be to shoot an email to hello@thedogkula.com. And we'll get you on our wait list so that we can get you set up and scheduled for an appointment.
Beautiful. And I know the list is which is great. So people have been asking about it, so it's nice. Again, that's hello@thedogkula.com. And I'll make sure that's in the show notes. At least my team will make sure that's in the show notes here today. And then we also have a big date coming up. So we are, if those of you out there would like to meet Dr. Maddie, December 7th, we are having a grand opening in Seagrove at the Dog Kula. And we're going to have many of our vendors there. We're going to have food there. We're going to have prizes. We're going to have giveaways, all kinds of good stuff. So that's December 7th. And Doc, do you know the time we're doing that?
12:30, I believe.
It's either,
What?
I think it's 11 to 3, I think. So,
I think the Facebook says
yeah.
12:30.
Yeah.
That's just because they had to put a time, maybe. But
Okay, maybe that would be right in the middle, so there would not be inaccurate there. So, all right. So, if you want to reach out for Dr. Maddie, you'd love to maybe bring your dog or cat, or I don't even know what, maybe your snake. I don't know what else you can do, but nonetheless, um, you can reach out hello@thedogkula.com if you'd like to meet her in person, like to come down, visit the Dog Kula, a little bit more about the Dog Kula. If you guys haven't been there yet, this is an amazing place where we have the best of the best foods, the best of the best apothecary, and now the best of the best veterinarian. So we are super proud and I'm super proud of all the efforts that everyone has come together. My wife has spearheaded so much. Dr. Maddie, you've been a huge part of this. So for all of my team out there, you guys are all awesome. And we're literally making dreams happen here, which is pretty cool here. So, all right, with that being said, Dr. Maddie, any parting shots here, anything else you'd like to share with the audience from you today?
just my gratitude to this community for providing me a space to be able to practice medicine this way and to be in service to you and to your animals. Come out December 7th. Come meet me. I'm extremely excited to meet all of you and your furry kiddos as well. So,
Awesome. Well,
Dr.
thank you. Well,
Thank
thank
you. It's a
yeah.
pleasure being here tonight.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Love you. And we're going to do this again. We'll probably do it several times. There's some other topics. I want to do some deep dives in. I'm going to get you a little uncomfortable, but first I just wanted you to kind of walk in and get everyone to know you first. All right, everyone. Thank you once again for being here with the Health Made Simple show. As usual, continue to take deliberate action for your mind, your body, overall wellness. That'll be awesome.